Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel. So in today's session, we will be starting our new project. The project titled as an inventory management application, and we are thrilled and so excited to share with you the progress and everything that you may need to do to achieve the project outcome. Without further ado, let's start with our today's agenda. All right. Let's talk about today's agenda. Please keep in mind that we will be covering a lot today, so I hope dividing the topics this way will help you follow and understand. So, we will start by highlighting some items and setting expectations. Then we will define important terms that I believe they are critical to understand. Once we're done, we will start working on project charter document, which is part of the project initiation phase. After that, we will work on the project planning. Before ending the session, we will briefly introduce SCRUM methodologies in software development projects. And last but not least, we will have a sneak peek on what will be on the next session. In setting expectation, there are some items that I want to highlight. For example, the duration of each video will never exceed 30 minutes. I thought of this very carefully, and I believe longer content might drive viewers away because they are time consuming. We will always use simple language in explaining our progress. This is also important for us because we want to reach out to many people from different levels of expertise. Another important item is that we will provide related materials such as documents, scripts, images, files, etc. for download within the video description. Last but not least, if you find it difficult to understand a topic or definition, please relax and don't be alarmed. Everything will eventually get easier when you work on multiple projects. Now, let's talk about some important definitions. The first item I want to bring is what is a project. Since we will be talking about projects a lot, I thought it is important to define one. So, a project is a combination of objectives that are meant to be achieved due to a business or personal needs. Those objectives are carefully planned to be completed in a previously specified time and cost. Anything that you can think of can be categorized as a project if it solves an existing problem, it needs preparations, it is feasible, and it leads to a tangible result. You know what? Let's find an example. Imagine that you are developing a training document for how to use a specific software. Your document, the one that you are developing, must solve an existing problem. In this case, we can say the end users are struggling in learning how to use the app. So there you go. We have the problem. Your document needs preparation. For example, you need to specify the topics, the headlines, and the instructions that you want to put in on that document. So you do have the second item, which is the needs preparation. Your document also needs to be feasible, which means it can be achieved or completed in the specified time. For example, it might not be feasible to develop a document of 200 pages in 2 days. Also, the document should, or the project should lead to a tangible result. In this case, you will have your document ready and reviewed by the end of the project. We will go for we'll show some more examples for projects, but for now, I want to define something else. So, let's talk about what is a problem. We talked about this a little bit earlier when we said projects must solve an existing problem, right? So in project management, a problem is a missing feature that it is needed to complete an activity. So in the previous example, the training document, for example, there was a lack of knowledge by end users. So this is the problem. So there was a lack of knowledge. So you needed that document to ensure everyone is able to work without interruption. Okay, since we are defining a problem, I think it's very critical to highlight that a problem in project management must be analyzed from the end user's perspective. So this might not be very clear to some of you, but I'll try to explain that now. This means we must talk to end users and carefully define the problem so we can design the right solution. Okay, back to the project, and as I promised, we will look at some examples. You know what? I think I just lied to you. Okay, before we can talk about the examples, let's quickly take a look at project management lifecycle phases. This is an important phase because you will see this a lot in your journey. So the project management lifecycle phases are the phases that you will go through in every project you manage or you contribute to. It starts with the initiation phase. This is where you define the problem statement, create a business case, define the project scope, define the budget and the timeline. Next is the planning phase. Here where you do some maybe extended work on the project scope, define the milestones, develop the functional and non-functional requirements. After that, the executing phase, and this is where the actual work will happen. So you will start designing, you will start implementing, distributing tasks, everything will be done within this phase. Next is monitoring and controlling. So here, you remember like in the initiation phase when you defined like the schedule and budget? The monitoring happened in this phase where you need to ensure that you are on time, on budget, everything is good. Maybe you have extra KPIs that you have defined, so you need to monitor them and ensure that everything is happening in time and you are on the same page with any other team members. After that, there will be the closure phase, and this is the closing. Like you are almost done with the project. You need to check if you have any like contracts, for example, with the third-party contractors. You will end these contracts, closing the work, maybe some lessons learned, and maybe even some team celebration. Even though the work is practically done, but there's still the continuous improvement phase, and this is really important one because here you will monitor and review the user's uptake. You want to see your product or your in our case our software. We want to see that the users are happy and actually using it. The business impact. Well, there should be some business impact, right? Because we built the system at that point. We built the system to solve a problem. So if there's no impact, then maybe there's something wrong happened. Last but not least, we also want to see the user's feedback to see if there's any issue that has been reported, or maybe just some happy users want to express their gratitude. Now, after defining the different phases of the project management lifecycle, I think we are ready to go for some examples. And as you see here in the list, I will define the first example, which is releasing a YouTube content, but I will leave the other three to you as considered as a homework or an exercise. I really hope that you will be able to define, to find the relationship with the other three examples after seeing what I will be doing here now. Okay, so in the first one, let's say in the initiation phase. So, and I'm talking about releasing a YouTube content. Okay, releasing a YouTube content, we need to define the problem, or what needs to be covered to decide the types of content. We also need to specify the budget, if there's a budget, and also we need to specify the time, which means when the video must be released. If we go to the second phase, which is the planning phase, we probably need to define some milestones. For example, reaching a 1,000 view in one day. This is like a big milestone. Maybe contribute to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month. Another items is what are the topics that will be in the videos, what are the headlines, the resolutions of the video, the video editing platform. So these are like some requirements, functional and non-functional requirements that you need to specify in the planning. The executing phase, it is the actual recording, maybe designing some video effects, or maybe coordinating with other editors if there are multiple people working on it. Monitoring, the next phase, you need to monitor the budget. If you have like $100 budget, you need to monitor that you don't spend more than that. Coordinating with other editors to ensure everything is being managed properly. The closure, which is the next phase, is review and upload the video. Like we're done. We are uploading the video, ending any agreement or contract. If, for example, if we hire, let's say, a graphic designer, for example, a graphic designer to design like a video ending or introduction. So this has happened in this phase. Last but not least, continuous improvement is like keep an eye on the viewer comments. Try to learn from them. Use what we've learned to make the next video better. So these are some examples on the projects and how we kind of map these examples to the project management lifecycle. Okay. Do you remember when we talked about the milestones in project management? This slide, specifically this slide, I consider this as a milestone in this video. So reaching this point means we have completed the definition and the assumptions, which means everyone understands what is a project, the definition of the problem, examples of some projects, and the phases of the project management lifecycle. So congratulations, you have reached really a big step. Now it is time to start working. So project charter is an essential part of the project initiation phase, because this document actually represents the whole phase, the initiation phase. It is a document, as I mentioned, and you need that document as a project manager to provide and present the problem to the decision makers. The project charter document summarizes the problem statement, the objectives, and the scopes of the project. It also defines stakeholders, the expected outcome of the project, the risks, and some assumptions of the project. Consider the project charter as your proposal of a new project that will solve an existing problem and your argument to get the green light to start. Let's jump and explore the charter document. So the project charter document is like your initial contract with the decision maker entity within your client. Consider this if, for example, if you work within a company. So project charter, or the project proposal as it's known in some other locations, it will be like a document that you provide or present to your managers to convince them that this project is important and we would like to implement. In our project, the charter document will address the project title, so it will just clearly display what is the project title, the problem statement, where we will define the missing features and explain why they are important for our business, the objectives, and this is kind of a list of outcomes that we hope to achieve by the end of the project. The project scope, he will briefly talk about a few other things like the project schedule, some assumptions in the project, and also the risks. And then we move to key milestones. Key milestones are defined as some few key points in our timeline. After that, we go to the project budget and the project team. We define that. We list the team with the rules. Last but not least, we will briefly talk about the approach of the project. Let's dive in and see how this document was prepared. And by the way, the charter document as well as any other materials will be available for download in the description section. Okay, we start with the title page where we have our logo. And then if we scroll down a little bit, there's a big title of the project name and the document type, which is the project charter, and then the today's date. Moving a little bit to the next page, which is the actual first page of the document, we have the project title again. It's the inventory management with a version number. So the reason why I've added the version number, because as you know, there's always the continuous improvement phase that we need. And who knows, maybe within this phase, we will have to fix few things or add some other features, and the results of that, new versions of the application. And then we jump to the problem statement. Here, we will talk about the actual problem that we are facing for our inventory that lead to the need to have an inventory management application. Our objectives, as I told you, these are kind of a list of wished future positions or something that we are hoping to achieve by the end of the project. So we would like to increase productivity, or let's rephrase this, that this project, once it is complete, it's supposed to increase productivity and reduce costs. It will give us the ability to track supplies, assets, and non-assets item. Also, it should improve planning and forecasting. It should boost investors' confidence. Also, it should help in organizing, purchasing, and storing operations. And jumping to project scope, as I told you, that there will be some new definitions in the project scope. For example, we talk about the deliverables here. So it will be a web application that manages, categorize, organize all assets. And we also have the schedule of the project. So our project initially have a specific schedule. So it's 12 sprints. Each sprint has a period of 7 days. So the expected date of the project start is November 7th, 2023, and the expected completion date is January 30th, 2024. You would probably ask, what is sprint and what does that mean exactly? So don't worry about that. We will talk about Scrum methodologies later within this session, and hopefully you will understand what exactly a sprint. We also have some assumptions here that we want to keep in consideration while we are developing the project, like the tools for managing and developing the projects are available for free. It's like, hey, don't worry about that. So you don't have really to invest anything to bring this project up and running. There's also some other assumptions, like the system will be deployed in a local network, which means no cost for web hosting. So we are talking about this is our circumstances, our project that will work with our infrastructure. Maybe you have different assumptions, but for our case, this will be hosted locally. However, there is one thing that might lead to some investment or subscriptions, which is a security certificate for this project, since this will run on an HTTPS. We will explain this in more details later on when we actually start working on the project. And then the risks, what kind of risks that we may face when we work in the project. So there is no really high risk within the project. However, I think this is important in any project, which is any lack in gathering information will lead to missing features, or maybe features that don't really work as intended. So this is really important. When we gather information, we need to make sure that we have everything, or at least as much as possible. And we need to understand, we need to talk to end users, different levels of end users, stakeholders, try to gather information as much as possible. So the second risk, maybe it can be considered as a risk, since this is like a locally hosted system. There should be some limitation for people who are trying to access remotely. So even though there are some solutions, but these solutions might lead to some investment, so we still need to consider this as a risk. So this is a local system will be hosted in the local network. So there will be a limitation for people who are, for example, working from home. Okay, jumping to our key milestones. So the first key milestone we have is November 7th, 2023, which is the project kickoff. This has been started yesterday, by the way. And so the next key milestone is December 12th, 2023. And this will introduce the first demo release that will be shared with clients. So let me explain this a little bit. So since we are developing the project in kind of multiple sprints, after each sprint we will have a prototype, which means technically a demo. But this milestone is where we will have everything together, like a working application that can be displayed or can be demonstrated to other people. January 30th, 2023, this is the project closure, and this is another key milestone for us. And then we jump to other items. For example, the budget. There will be no budget costs required during the project implementation, which is great. And this is something maybe the decision maker will like when they see. Project team. In this case, there's really no project team, so there's only one person will be working on this project. However, it is always important to display or list the project team. Maybe in your case, there will be more people will be contributing to this project. And also it is important to describe the role of each person. So in my case, I will be wearing multiple hats. I will be doing like the project manager, Scrum Master, and full stack developer. The approach. So in the approach, we will explain a few things. Some of them are technical, but some of them are important to be listed. So, for example, the development methodology, we will use Scrum. The technology track that we will use for this project. So for the database, we will use SQL Server. For our development, for our back-end development, we use ASP.NET Core, C# language, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery for any front-end development. The tools that we will be using for the development are Visual Studio, Git, SQL Server, some Photoshop work that we will have for some very basic Photoshop work to prepare maybe some pictures, some backgrounds. We will get into that in the future. The development will be divided into 12 sprints as mentioned earlier. Each sprint is a 1 week long. Or in other words, it's a 7 days sprint. For management and documentation, we will be using we will try to make this as simple as possible. So we will be using Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. There's a very nice website. It's called Lucidchart. It has an easy way to create charts and flowcharts. So we will be using this. The good thing with Lucidchart, it has the free plan with them, so you don't really have to pay anything. And last but not least, within the project charter, there's the comments and approval. So in our case, we provided this we provided it as a table. And let's say that I have a committee of senior management. They will look at this and then they will give their feedback. So in this case, they may be they need to write their name and then a comment what they think of this proposal, and then they sign. Maybe it will be in a different way in your case. Maybe it is just by email, sending the project charter, and then they will get back to you hey, this is good, proceed. What is important with the project charter is this is the initiation of the project, which means you didn't work on the project yet. You are just proposing it and waiting for a green light. Once you get the green light, then congratulations, you are ready. You can start with the next phase, which is the project planning. After receiving the green light and the approval to proceed with your project, the next step will be the project planning. This is the second phase of the project management lifecycle. And within this phase, we are going to produce a very important document called Functional and Non-Functional Requirements. Without further ado, let's start with that document. We have finally reached the planning phase. This document covers three main topics: functional requirements, non-functional requirements, and data modeling. Functional requirements items are focusing on the software itself in terms of what and how it should do things. Think about it as it is about the application's features and behaviors. Non-functional requirements, on the other hand, describe items that you need to maintain during the project, but not part of the application's features. This document will also address the data modeling and the steps to create it. All right, let's take a look at how this document was prepared. We start by displaying the version table, and the version table is an illustration of how many iterations we went through to develop this document. In our case, we have only one iteration or one document, which means we have the first functional and non-functional requirements draft. After the version table, we start with the first two topics, which is the functional and non-functional requirements list. So how we start with that is by defining the number of priorities that we want to present in the definition. We will explain this furthermore a little bit later, but for now you just need to know that we have only three levels of priorities, which is priority 1, must have, priority 2, should have, and priority 3, nice to have. So functional requirements, as we have defined earlier, that are things related to the application's features. So we list them in this table. So this table has the requirement number, the requirement itself, comment, priority, date reviewed, and date approved. So to explain this, the requirement number, any serial number that you may think of. So you and your team, you sit, talk, you kind of have a specific naming convention of that requirement numbering, and you go for it. The requirement we will go for, we will explain some examples from this table. And again, as a reminder, this document is available for you to download to review in more details later. So for example, the first one, it says all users must be authenticated before accessing the system. The comment says user credential using email and password. So what does that mean? So we're saying that, hey, anyone who uses the system needs to access using email and password first. It has priority number 1, and I want you to focus on the language here. So as you can see here, it says all user must. So we use the word must here to kind of illustrate that this is priority number 1. If we go to the priority, we say, as you can see here, priority 1, it means must have. So in the language, you need to use a must word if it's a priority number 1. Date reviewed, it means that this is the date that like the project team defined this entry. So this is the date. There's another date, which is the blank column here. This is the date approved. This is when the team and the project manager, they maybe later on to involve the client, they agreed together that this is needed, so they put the date approved. The second item, let's go with the second item because it has a different priority. So I want you also to look at the language here. So the system should have internal messaging capability between its users. So what is priority number 2? If we look at it, it says should have. So that's good. We use the right language. It says it should have this capability to have messaging between users. So let me pause for a second and talk about must have and should have. So when we say must have, it means that the application will not run without it. Or let's say the application will be missing features without it. The should have will not affect the application this way. So the application will still run properly, will still give us all the features that we want, but this is something that we really needed to maybe to enhance or to improve the application. Let's take another example, maybe priority number 3. As you can see, we have a lot of items in the functional requirements. Oh, the last one is FR22. Again, the numbers here is really something up to you. How do you want to do the numbers? So it says it would be nice if the interface supports multiple items. You see the language here? So it is priority number 3, and in the definition it says nice to have. So what does this mean? So this is a good feature if we add it, but if we don't add it, there will be no effect even in the quality of the features within the application. So the quality of the features will not be impacted by changing the theme or changing the color of the interface. And this is the functional requirements. We jump into the second table here, which is the non-functional requirements. As per the definition, non-functional requirements are also requirements that we need to maintain during the project, but they are not part of the application's features. Let's go with some examples here. So the first item, as you can see, we use different kind of numberings, like I would say NF01, and it says team meetings must be organized to ensure the work is being done properly. In the comments it says daily scrum, sprint review, sprint planning, etc. So there are a number of meetings that the team really need to maintain during the project, and it has priority number 1. What does that mean? If we don't do that, then there will be a problem in the project. There will be, and in this case, there will be a communication problem. Again, before we move on, if you notice, this is a very important feature in the project, but it has nothing to do with the application itself. It has things to do with organizing, meeting, and talking with people. Okay, another item that has the priority number 2, the platform should guarantee an auto-scaling option. So this is a cloud computing features where it has auto-scaling. We can have like some thresholds to automatically shrink or expand the infrastructure that we have for the web application. And it has a priority number 2, which means if we don't have it, it will not impact the project or the features. However, if we have this, it will improve the user experience. So we will not really reach a limit where we have a problem with the storage or anything and it might lead to some error messages and maybe some unhappy end users. Last example of the functional and non-functional requirements is this one, which is priority number 3. And again, as you can see the language, it says it would be nice if user manuals are completed before deploying the system. So we're talking about user manuals, like some documentation related to the system. It would be really nice if we complete them before deploying the system. Again, it has nothing to do with the features themselves, but it is something that nice if we have it. And there you go. This is the functional and non-functional requirements. This is the idea of providing them. So you and your team, the development team, including also the clients and maybe the stakeholders, everyone from the stakeholders, you need to talk, you need to communicate by different ways of communication to ensure that you come up with a list of functional and non-functional requirements for the project. The last part of the document is data modeling. So data modeling is the process of creating a visual representation of the entire system. In our case is the inventory management application. There are 4 main steps in creating data modeling. And in our project, we will start by defining something called identity types. And identity type, you can consider this as the kind of counting the main actors or main entities of the application. In our case, we have user, department, item, and vendor. Please note that there might be more entities later on when we start with the project. The second step is defining attributes to each entity we have defined. So look at this table. For example, the user entity. What we have is what are the attributes for a user? There's the ID, name, address, contacts, maybe username and password, date of birth, title, supervisor, and date of joining. So these are the attributes that we have identified that we need for our inventory management application. Please note that maybe in your case, in your business case or business needs, you may need to define more attributes or less attributes. So it really depends on your business needs. The second one is department. So the attributes for department is ID, title, head. Head means the department's manager, and description. The third step in creating entity framework is naming conventions. Consider naming conventions as policies between you and your other project team members. So some examples of these policies are the number one, all entities must be using a singular name. If we look back at our entities, we used user, department, item, vendor. We didn't say vendors, so we always use a singular name. The second policy is all names, whether entity or attribute, must start with capital letters. So the names start with capital letters and the rest with regular small letters. The third item or the third policy, it says in complex naming, every word must start with a capital letter and don't use any separations. Separations means like dot or underscore or hyphen or whatever. And the other word, of course, because we said every word must start with capital letter, the other word will have this capital letter. So it will be visually easy to distinguish what is the end of the word and the other word. So as you can see, here is an example of business category as one complex word. The last step in creating entity framework is identifying relationships. So before I explain what we have here, let me introduce two important definitions. First is a primary key. And when we say a primary key, we mean a unique identifier for each record in an entity. For example, let's say my driving license. Driving license has a number. That number is unique, which means there's no other driving license has the same number. Why we need to use that? It will make it easy to reach out any record that we know. So another example. If I want to fetch data related to someone, I can't use the name because there are some other people have the same name. Instead, we use a primary key, or in our case here, an ID, or we even can say a unique identifier, so it can directly take us to that specific person or that specific record. Okay, so this is the primary key. On the other hand, there's something else called foreign key. So foreign key used to establish relationship between entities, and the foreign key is actually a primary key in some other entity. Look at what we have here. So these are representations of our entities. So this is a user entity. It has ID as a primary key. In the department entity, there's a head. As I explained earlier, head is let's say the department's manager, right? The department's manager, at the end of the day, they are part of the users. So the head is a foreign key that refers to an ID or a primary key in other table. So this is how we do the last step of identifying relationships. And after that, we are ready to move to the next step in the entity framework, which is creating the database. Once we're done with that, the last step in this document is the requirements confirmation sign-off, and it is really a list of names of people who worked on this document. So they need to write their name and sign off. It's kind of acknowledgement that they have finished working on the document and they approve what is it or approve the content of that document. If you are still here and following this video, I salute you. So we have reached the last part of our today's agenda, which is SCRUM Methodology. SCRUM Methodology is a management framework to organize projects and the work on that project to achieve the goal efficiently. Scrum introduces a set of meetings, tools, rules to manage projects. So if we try to rephrase that, Scrum is a framework that was invented to make your work more organized. In our next session, we will be learning in more details about Scrum methodologies. We will be talking about what is sprint, what is the product backlog, the sprint backlog, sprint planning and review, the sprint retrospective, product owner, Scrum master, and Scrum team. Thank you everyone for watching. I really hope that today's session was an added value to your career development. I am very grateful for your time and see you next week.